We're excited to share this episode. We just had Keith Allen on. Great episode. He touched on so many different nuggets in the cannabis industry. We talked about tokenization, led on so many different things that he's doing. They've got a G4 event coming up September 29th through October 2nd. Absolute pleasure to just get one of the business minds and visionaries in that industry. A great time, man. Just being able to do it was powerful.
Yeah, really looking forward to sharing with you the fact how he navigated the waters and how he overcomes regulations and builds out a brand. And, really excited to share this episode with you.
So appreciate you guys, man. Make sure you check us out, subscribe. Thank you. Welcome to Vegas Circle with Paki and Chris. And today, joining the circle with us, we're excited to sit down with the CEO of Meadow Holdings, G4Live, and the Budtender Awards. We have Mr. Keith Allen, man. So thanks for joining the circle, bro.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Keith.
Thanks,
that's
guys.
my bad, man.
Appreciate it. Love being here.
Yeah,
Thank you for inviting me.
We've been paying attention to you, man. So we got to jump right in, man. And you're doing some amazing things, man, in the cannabis industry.
Thank you.
One of the first questions we have for you is, how did you get into the cannabis industry?
Boy, that is a long story. Let's see if we can give you the summarized the how I got into cannabis for dummies story. As I was talking to you guys before we started doing this part of the interview, I built and sold a few companies. And the last company that I had sold was really heavily focused on marketing. And a lot of people were asking me for advice on how to market their companies, how to create brands, brand identity, and things that I didn't even really pride myself in being that great at. But I guess, your own perception is different than others. Mm-hmm. And when I was asked enough times, I said, I'm going to start a boutique marketing agency that focuses on brand identity, how people feel about the brand, not what they think.
Got it. And
when we got into that, we used the phrase, we were in guns, drugs, and rock and roll, because we worked with Randy Jackson from American Idol, was one of my clients, and I worked with some of his artists. So that was, a lot of rock, and we worked with some of the record labels and firearms companies, some Navy SEALs that started a firearms company, and they hired us to do some marketing for them. And then along came cannabis. Yeah. And when that happened, I was quick to see, and this is a business model that I like to follow, which is what problem are we solving and how are we filling the void. And there were so many voids and problems in cannabis that I saw that were so easily fixed if people just put a little thought to it, that I said, we need to get into this business.
Got it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, it's almost like it was a mad dash to cannabis when it first became legalized medicinally and, recreationally here in some places. And it really was almost like a green gold rush from like what I've heard in the past, that people just mad dashing, but that's just the buy and sell and use cannabis. But there's so many different aspects to it. How you're going to store it, distribute it, part of the things that you do that we'll touch on to a little bit later. But, what made you decide on getting into one specific focus, but obviously, or create the Meadow Holdings?
So I looked at it from a very strategic point of view that I'm glad has worked out so far, right? Because you never know.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You have your feelings, and you have your gut, and you have your instincts, and you follow them. And it's okay to fail. You just have to know what the difference is. And in this case, I would say that we have succeeded on a few points. Directly answering your question, I really looked at the architecture of how do I create a company that has bookended entities that can help support each other.
Got it.
So Meadow Holdings was originally founded with this idea around the Budtender Awards. And the Budtender Awards was created around the idea that the brands are really ambitious about getting into the thoughts and minds of the Budtenders. Mm-hmm. But they also, behind the scenes, didn't really care about them personally all that much because they saw them as sales clerks. They didn't take them seriously. And I was sort of struck by that it was like, it was like fakeness of sorts. But they were trying to come up with the gifts and things they give you the Budtenders. So let's create a program that can really put people out of the dispensary and out of the brands in a neutralized position where you get the opportunity to interface with the Budtenders and talk to them about your brand. More importantly, let's do it at a place that really gives legitimacy to the industry and see if we can get on an MGM property. We were the first ever cannabis event that MGM Properties has ever allowed, and to this day, as far as I know, the only.
That's
and to have that credibility of being backed and partnered with MGM at Mandalay Bay really gave us a lot of credibility out of the gate. The second platform that we launched with was called Cannapaid, and Cannapaid is a merchant services platform that provides credit card services to dispensaries. We've had some false starts, but I'm proud to say that we're up and running right now in some of the biggest dispensaries around the country, and we provide a legitimate legal transaction to use a credit card. So those two things together really help support each other because we're in the dispensary any way you look at it.
Yeah, because there's so many government regulations, right? So it's federal. So Chris and I were talking about it earlier. It's kind of like, how do you get around all that red tape?
Yeah.
Right. So like we were looking at first, I mean, it was great you talked about Canna. I was looking it up. I'm like, everything's cash. You can't do banking. How does that work?
So banking and merchant services are not mutually exclusive. They're two separate things altogether. Although people do group them together because it has to do with transactions, financial transactions.
Okay.
So there are about 500 plus depositories, banks around the country who will bank cannabis. Most of them are state, local chartered banks, credit unions. But we don't really mess too much with the bank accounts. So in the world of merchant services, without getting too deep into the
weeds,
blah, blah, blah tech of it all,
I got you. Yeah.
There's something called an MCC code. And there is no legal MCC code for cannabis. An MCC code is what describes the transaction. Let's say you go get a massage versus buying tires. It describes the transaction and categorizes it, sort of, so to speak. There is no legal MCC code for cannabis. However, there is an MCC code for a financial transaction, the one we use, which is 6012. And in our platform, people are purchasing a stablecoin.
Oh, okay.
And that stablecoin and stablecoin technology is very interesting because the OCC came out with a ruling at the beginning of January saying that that stablecoin technology was as legitimate for financial transactions at federal banks as ACH and wire.
Interesting.
Smart.
Yeah.
So that gave us basically a digital currency platform that we're able to work with that allows us to actually have a transaction.
Oh, wow. And
That's genius.
Yeah,
Man.
that's
absolute
pretty
genius.
intense.
Yeah.
And, Canna, that seems like a big opportunity, a huge opportunity, because up until that point, I'm assuming there wasn't a lot of people that were in that space, or in competition probably a little bit slim. And luckily they put that on there to be able to use those tokens, I guess, to be able to verify those transactions. But from a federal regulation standpoint, the one thing I got to be curious about is that obviously this money has to go somewhere. The transaction fees have to be documented somewhere. Sure. Is there a risk of getting like federally sued over something like that, or get withholdings taken from you?
It's not the federal issue that we're concerned about. It's more about the rules and regulations of the card brands that we're very sensitive to.
Got it. That makes sense.
And respectfully so. I mean, look, we get it. Everybody who is involved in my company, and this is what I think differentiates us from the other people that are attempting to do these things. And listen, I truly do support competition. And not a lot of people take that position, but I do. Because I think competition in the space helps promote the fact that we're all trying to find a way to support an industry that has a lot to offer the country, to providing jobs. When you look at the gold rush or the grain rush of it all, there are so many jobs being created by this industry that it's overwhelming. And once we tip to all 50 states, it becomes descheduled by the DEA. There's a whole set of other issues, not to get away from the question, but there's a whole set of other issues that come with state regulation. Because the way I understand it, it's not the feds we're concerned about, it's the states, and here's why. If there's open borders, California will crush the country. And all of the tax benefits that were given to people by states that have allowed people, given tax credits and tax benefits to people that are growing, the cultivators, and there's just a whole bunch of people on that side of the fence that don't want open border.
Got it.
So descheduling is an issue. But to directly answer your question, we're not concerned about being any federal issues with what we're doing because the technology that we're using is federally legal.
That's
awesome.
Okay, makes sense.
That's how you figured it out. You figured it out. That's what we were talking about. Was you trying to figure? It's like almost like Apple Pay in a way, right? It's got that similar transaction of Apple Pay is in your documented at that. It's called tokenization. Is that kind of the
tokenization? So
because Chris was pinging on it a little bit.
The best way to describe it is if you look at Apple Pay or Zelle or Venmo.
Yes, yeah.
All of these platforms are working on a similar platform as us, but what they're doing is they're removing a third party intermediary, which is the bank. Right? You still have settlement banks.
Sure.
You still need liquidity to fund the batching of the transactions.
Sure.
But you are removing some of the more traditional, which is what I love. I mean, you look at the space race right now, right? It's like they're looking for federal contracts, but these are billionaires in space, right? It's, like, it's the best thing about it. It's like it's people taking things into their own hands.
Blank canvas.
The entrepreneurial spirit of the world right now is just on fire.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. And you look at the cannabis industry, it's just so prevalent in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, because it's funny because this is one thing that I read about, just crypto in general or any type of tokens is that what it really does is puts all of these businesses in the hands of ordinary people to be in control of their own businesses. And essentially, this is what it seems like it's doing with the business transactions. And it doesn't seem more prevalent in the industry except for cannabis. It's like it makes perfect sense to be involved in there. So
look at YouTube.
You definitely took advantage of that.
Look at YouTubers in TikTok. And it's like, look at all these people that are just becoming multi-millionaires overnight because they've taken it into their own hands. They're not using
brand.
They're not trying to go to the traditional route of getting an agent, getting a show. It's like this. I mean, that whole model has been completely demolished.
We've been talking about it for years, and it's direct to consumer.
Yes.
So you go direct to consumer, it makes it more organic.
Right.
And you could build your own brand that way. Like you said before, we work with Randy Jackson, all that stuff. It's direct to consumer.
Absolutely.
Do you still think there's a big misconception of the cannabis industry? And because everybody, as soon as you hear that, you think weed and you think whatever it is. But now it's become so professional.
Yeah.
But do you think it's still a big misconception?
Boy, this is that's a great question, and I have a couple of great answers for you, and I need to summarize these and keep them quick because it's a long discussion.
No, that's like I was curious.
Yeah. Directly answering your question, yes. Huge misconception.
Okay.
The way that I will answer is this. It's all about the narrative. Starting with, look at alcohol, right? Mm-hmm. Alcohol is romanticized through wine and cheese and Napa Valley and the Clydesdales and, the Budweiser commercials and just, I mean, it's such a romantic spirit, if you will, literally and figuratively.
Marketed it. Yeah.
However, there are so many deaths and arrests and tragedy that's caused by alcohol versus cannabis. Now, one of our great speakers that we had at the G4Live event last year, his name is Brent Pimvidic. He's one of my dearest friends, and he's a huge TV producer. He ran the company that produced the show Biggest Loser. He created the show Bar Rescue with John Taffer. He's just a huge TV producer. And he came in as a speaker, and he did this whole pitch on using Ferris Bueller's Day Off as the comparison. He's like, why does Ferris get to have all the fun? Ferris is alcohol. And Jeannie's cannabis. And Jeannie ends up in the police station sitting next to Charlie Sheen talking about why she can't to school and her brother can, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, what do we have? We got Reefer Madness. It's changing the narrative and helping people understand that there's children that are being helped with epileptic seizures by CBD. Yeah. There's it's just the list of health benefits from cannabis, and whether it's psychoactive or not is just endless.
That's true.
Now, the second part of the answer to that question is the cannabis industry is filled with two very distinct groups of people. Mm-hmm. You got the C-suite guys that are coming in from all the big corporations that really know how to run companies, that are running the bigger companies. Yeah. Some of them are my dearest friends. My buddy Mark Russ, who's, he used to run Red Bull North America. He's now running Curaleaf. He's the president of Curaleaf. And he's my neighbor and a dear friend of mine. I love the guy. He's not some stuffy suit. He's a really smart, funny guy and cool, and he gets the industry, right? But most of the people that are in the industry that come from I've been in it for 20-something years. So in other words, you were a weed dealer, right?
Yeah. That was the conception. Yeah, that was the misconception.
I will come full disclosure. I sold weed when I was in college, and I understand that thinking, right? But it's like you've got these two groups of people that are on both sides of the fence fighting with each other, going, screw the suits. It's like
we have the same agenda.
But you need the suits.
It's all right. Yeah.
This is not a weed industry. This is a consumer packaged good. This is a CPG industry. Mm-hmm. It will head down all the same roads that all of the big companies that have succeeded in the CPG industry will succeed.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, that was one thing that always surprised me when cannabis started to get rolled out was how upscale they attempted to make the sales process. Like you have somebody specifically there to walk you and guide you, help you select, almost like a wine connoisseur trying to give you the correct, strain of what that you were looking for. And that was always really interesting to me because it wasn't like a liquor store. You walk in, grab a bottle, and you leave, which you assumed almost like the drug dealer mentality. You just walk in, grab it, and you leave. But it's always been a totally different industry, and I think that has a lot to do with the C-suite guys setting that standard to propel the perception of marijuana industry in general.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at regulation even too, with all the testing, and it really was such a cute, people were just moaning and groaning, dragging their feet through the regulation. However, if you go, and it's different in different states, but if you go to like Planet 13, for example, down the street over and Planet 13 we're good friends with them, and I really love that company and the way they're run, and I've been fortunate enough to get the behind the scenes tour of everything in that, and they got in the building there, and It's one of the best run companies I've ever seen, truly. One of the things I appreciate about that is if you go talk to a bud tender there, they have training, before people start their shifts. People are trained on the terpenes and what's going to help and benefit people. For example, if you are somebody that wants a sativa-based flower, but you don't want the anxiety that comes with that flower. So what you're looking for mood elevators like limonene, myrcene, things that are going to help brighten the high, if you will, but are not going to give you that anxiety and that edge. To know these things is important to the consumer and to the general public because some of these people that are coming into these dispensaries are not daily weed smokers. These are people that just want to have some fun. They maybe haven't smoked in a while or smoked on a joint at a party, whatever. But they're like, I'm going to try this out. They need to be educated. Or they're coming to
Vegas just to hang out, have a good time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But being educated is a really big part of our focus, and I think is what has moved the needle for the industry to be taken more seriously.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to have you come on is we were like, look, this gentleman's built all these companies. You know what's going on. You know how to build a company. We saw the G4 because I think you guys recently did one in May, if I'm not mistaken.
May, yeah.
We were supposed to go to that one, believe it or not. Yeah. And we wanted to check it out. And I wanted to talk a little bit about G4. So you guys call it the Essential Super Event. Can you kind of share like what they would experience with the next event?
Well, we wanted to differentiate ourselves from other events, not because we're just trying to just be different, but because we see that it's in the events world, it's either very businessy or it's very stonery. So we said, why don't we create something that's very inclusive to the whole industry? And so G in G4 stands for global. 4 represents the 4 corners of the cannabis universe as we see it. And if you can imagine sort of 4 crop circles kind of all overlapping, and in the middle you got the G4Live logo. Everything from cultivation, just think seed to sale. CBD, we even mess with some of the Kratom brands, right? Which is a whole other subject. But the G4Live experience is very experiential. So if you came in May, we were one of the first events back in 14 months in Vegas.
Big event,
It was the first weekend that we actually had conventions. Mandalay Bay. We were the first. So we opened up with Travis Barker and DJ Spider and a couple of other young artists who we're really proud of too. Hunter Moallam, young kid out of Canada that we found who won the Creative Award. And he's town from 7,000 people and created some music in his closet. And we put him on stage with Travis Barker and DJ Spider. And DJ Spider and Travis did the old DJ AM set. And he hadn't done that in a long time. It was really special and really cool to watch that. And it was incredible to see. And then that was just opening night. And then you got 2 days of Expo in May. It's a smaller event for us, the May event, more businessy. But we still had, you walked around the event, there was, we serve food. We serve breakfast, snack, lunch, snack. We have open bars. It's all part of the experience. It's not box salads. It's like gourmet food.
Yeah.
So the whole G4Live experience is now extended into September's event, which is the 29th through October 2nd. And at that event, we're kicking off with Sublime doing a 90-minute set.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we've got the Aqua Dolls, a young band from San Diego, an all-girl band that's opening up for Sublime. And then we've got 3 days of Expo. We're having a party at Mike Tyson's house. That's a VIP thing that we're doing. We're also doing a party, a warehouse party that's off property, so we have consumption. But there's no THC at MGM properties. So the way that we balance it out is we have this whole experiential event on the property, and then we move to off-site parties, if you will, sponsored by brands. And then Saturday night, October 2nd, is the Budtender Awards. And last year we did the Budtender Awards. We had Cypress Hill perform, and they got a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I, unfortunately, as I sit here right now, cannot tell you yet who's performing at the Budtender Awards this year. But it is one of the most household names in the music industry.
Is it a group or a person? So get the tip.
It's a couple of people who have never performed together live ever.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it is going to be Rolling Stone, Billboard magazine worthy.
I don't know how you pull that off.
It
sounds
massive.
exhausting.
You figured it out.
It's
man.
a big deal.
Yeah.
What we're doing on the Budtender Awards this year is most definitely going to be talked about everywhere.
See, you said it before. You're very strategic. That's what Chris and I were talking about. We were trying to figure out, like, you're doing it at Mandalay Bay. It's an MGM property. Like, how do you get around, like, the gaming commission? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do all? And I figured it out now. Was you could take it off-site and you'll do different
we're
things.
We're sensitive to promoting that too, because
Sure.
we're very sensitive to the gaming commission. If I can tell this quick story,
Of course,
the first year of the Budtender Awards, the first day was a Friday. It was a 2-day event. It was 2019. We got a phone call from the person at Mandalay Bay who we were working with, and she said, listen, we've got a group of suits, if you will, that want to meet you, executives.
Okay.
Leadership, I think
I
is the
got
phrase. And I said, wonderful. And we walked out to the front where people would walk in the doors, and we were greeted by 18 suits. that range from chief compliance officer, senior vice president of the company, CEO, MGM Properties, COO, president of Mandalay Bay, general counsel, and probably all their assistants.
Oh, wow.
And somebody who was there representing the Federal Gaming Commissioner. They wanted to walk the floor and make sure that we were doing things the right way. And Chuck Bowling, who is just a sweetheart of a guy, who's the president and the COO of Mandalay Bay. I hope I got his title right, but he's the head guy over there. Just a wonderful person. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Chuck. He's the guy that'll just kind of cruise around the property on a Friday night and just walk around and see people and shake hands. He's just a really cool guy. Anyway, he walked up and he goes, "Listen, we're not here to scare you guys. We're not here to walk around in this authoritative power. We just wanted to see it. We're going to break off into little groups. We're going to see it, and we'll come back and we'll talk afterwards." I said, "Great." I watched everybody walk around. They were super cool. They were talking to some vendors, smiles on their faces. And I see Chuck standing in the corner of the room, and he's kind of just looking at the room with kind of that hands behind his back, just kind of looking around. And I walk over to Chuck, and I stood next to him, and I took his position where we weren't facing each other. I was looking in the same direction he was. I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "Well, Keith, I got to tell you." He goes, "I didn't know what to think about this. I had no idea what we were in store for, right?"
Yeah.
And I kind of I resonated that with him. I go, "Me neither. We had this vision, and it's worked out so far. What do you think?" And he goes, "Yeah, Keith," he goes, "This is great." He goes, "I'm really proud to be partners with you guys, and you've done a great job."
Awesome.
And it was an attaboy, and I was so grateful for that.
Yeah, it seems like you do. You throw yourself into very difficult to navigate waters.
Guilty as charged.
There are areas that a lot of people wouldn't think to challenge that, or even just present an option in a space that it takes a lot of knowledge to navigate those spaces. Do you have like a legal background or something like that to be able to get into those areas and try to figure out how to work through them in a consistently productive way?
I do not have a legal background, but I've been around enough legal situations to understand how to navigate these waters. Yeah. And what it really takes, I think, is just the ability to have a vision and foresight, but to reverse engineer that and to say, here's the benchmarks we have to hit, and to find good people that you can surround yourself with that know how to navigate those waters better than you do, from especially a legal and operational and execution position. My job as CEO is to come up with a strategy, a deployment plan, and to communicate that properly to my team for execution.
You kind of touched on something that struck to me. Is like, so you start at the end goal, right? So you start like, we want to make an event, and you reverse engineer it back down to the basis area and figure out what the problems are going to be that you need to overcome and kind of work through them backwards instead of frontwards.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that when you have an outcome in mind, and that gives you the opportunity to dream the biggest outcome possible. It doesn't mean you're going to hit all the benchmarks. But what it means is you have the ability to be visionary. And I think that vision, from my experience, has been contagious in the sense of where you find other people that want to go on that journey with you. And in my office, nobody ever refers to me as their boss. And if they do, I make a joke with them and I slap them on the wrist for it, because that's not how I want to be perceived. Yeah. I'm a contemporary to everybody I work with, and we're all in this together, right? And that's not me being kind of like passive aggressive with ego. It's truly how I feel, because I get the sense that when you work together on a team and everybody's communicating and they're collaborating, you are able to really make that needle move, or move that big rock up that mountain, because it takes that effort.
That's 100%. You have the right mentality. We talk about all the time. It's like the CEOs, most people leave companies because of middle management, right? But you've got that. You got the people skills to be able to keep it together, man. And, I'm very curious. What would you give advice to, let's say, our listeners that would want to even get in the cannabis industry or just want to start their own business? Like, what's one tip or nugget you would tell them?
One of our good friends, coincidentally, another iHeart podcast from Cannabis Talk 101, Blue, he said something. I was listening to a conversation he was having with somebody. This was recent, and it struck me as he said, be unreasonable, be ridiculous. Why not? It's like if you look at everybody who's had these really great stories of success, they dared to be unreasonable. They dared to be ridiculous, and to organize that into some sort of traditional form that gives you the ability to execute. But it all starts with a dream. It starts with a vision, and surrounding yourself with people who share that vision and that dream, and then you get the opportunity to succeed. But along the way comes a lot of failure, and to not be afraid of failure. And I don't mean to sound like a business version of a fortune cookie, but you have to be able to experience that failure to know what the difference is between success and failure.
And that's how you learn.
I have failed so many times in my life, and it just, I think that the differentiating factor between failure and success is being willing to accept failure and seek success.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, being able to do that, you're 100% right. And you see all the visionaries that's why they continue to be successful, because they're willing to do that blank canvas, You're out here a lot, which is nice. So you're out here at least, like you said, probably once a month, probably more than that sometimes.
Yeah.
When you're here, what's a good restaurant that you like to go to?
Oh, my favorite is Joe's Stone Crab.
Okay. Yeah, Joe's good.
Yeah, good food.
Yeah, it's very
Joe's
good.
one of my favorites.
Yeah, we've been there. They got very good food.
Fantastic.
Very good food. Yeah.
I went to Zuma last night at Cosmo. That was really good too. Interesting, like just really creative. It's sushi, I guess, but I mean, it's just very cuisine based. It was really, really good.
I haven't been.
Yeah, Joe's Stone Crab is my favorite, man.
I've been to Joe's Crab. I have not been to Zumi yet.
Same. I
don't
love
think
it
I've
though.
been there
Sushi
yet.
sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
That's good to put those on the list. That's great. What else is next for you, man? I know you got so much going on. So the event is coming up September 29th through October 2nd.
Yes.
What else is on your radar, man? You got a lot going on. You visionary.
Well, so Round Meadow Holdings, we have a few businesses that we're involved with. We really are focused on Canna, G4Live, and Budtender Awards.
Okay.
However, in the middle of all that, we own a domain, Cannazon.com, which is, what it sounds like. What it sounds like.
Yeah.
But we're really focused on aggregating data that we collect between both of our platforms.
Smart.
And we're moving into a third vertical right now that we're putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of technology and a lot of support and energy behind, which is to say, how can we take this data that, if you look at Google and Facebook, I mean, they'll even admit it. They don't play in the space because they're publicly traded companies. It's regulated. You mean if you even post an ad that says the word cannabis in it and you try and boost it, you're going to get shut down on Instagram or what have you. But we're really focused right now on how can we take the data that we're collecting from the transaction side and with our compliance platform for Canopy, we have a lot of data we collect. I mean, from people's eye color to their addresses and their zip codes, right? And that's stored data on blockchain. However, we don't sell that data, and we will not sell that data. I mean, for all the obvious reasons, and obviously the Privacy Act. But also, how can we use that data to sell back to the industry or to repurpose for the industry to help professionalize it and make it better and help support the industry? In not all cases do we monetize, but certainly it's a monetized platform. So that's our big focus now is data and how do we repurpose it to help support the industry. To answer the question more directly.
Data is huge.
Yeah.
You get,
especially in cannabis data.
We collect so much though between the events business. I mean, I'll give you an example. We have right now a database of over 40,000 people. And none of those people were purchased or bought. Those are opted in people that have signed up for our events or purchased tickets or interested in the Budtender Awards or G4Live. Then on the other side, from the transaction side, what we collect with Canopy, it's very specific stuff. And we have, I could tell you how much indica people are smoking on a weekly basis from what states at what time of day.
That's wild.
Or they're purchasing, I should say.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and then as the industry just evolves, it's going to be continuously more, and people are going to need to find out what those next steps are to even just propel the industry forward, and that having the data is the best way to do that.
Yeah, but you have to be a purpose-driven company. If you ever listen to like Charles, I'm sorry, what's his name from Starbucks? My God, I mean, mine just blanked.
Oh, Schultz.
Schultz, yeah.
Yeah.
If you listen to him, and I listen to Masterclass all the time. You know that app?
It's very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Masterclass. And if you listen to Schultz, his thing on Masterclass, he talks about being a purpose-driven company that really focuses on supporting people around them, and it's like that's the goal of the company.
Yeah. Man, well, we're rooting for you, man.
Yeah, definitely.
It's an absolute pleasure to be able to have you on, just to be able to pick your mind and be able to show that cannabis is not. It just shows a whole different lane. You know what I mean? Of what you guys are doing with G4, and we're rooting for you. We'll be able to check it out in September. Which
You guys
is
got to
great.
be there.
Yeah, we're
100%.
definitely going.
Yeah,
We were
I'll
supposed
be
to go
there.
in May,
I'll be
but we didn't go. So
It's all right. You'll be my personal guest in September.
appreciate that, man.
In
Feel
fact,
like-
if there's anybody, if you guys, I don't know how this works with your podcast,
Yeah,
but if you want to
whatever
invite some people to come,
Appreciate
we'll
that.
give you guys some VIP passes to get out.
that'd be
Oh, good
fantastic.
looking out, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that, man.
That'd be exciting.
Mention a website, man, where people can go to it
Sure.
to actually purchase
Well,
tickets.
if you like to nominate a budtender, you can go to budtenderawards.com.
Okay.
And there's a whole process there to nominate budtenders. Nominate your favorite budtender. Also, if you're interested in getting tickets for G4Live, you can go to G4Live. It's the letter G, the number 4, the word live.com.
Okay.
And you can also, I recommend anybody who's interested in going, I realize that the Vegas market may not need hotel rooms, but maybe you want to get a hotel room for the night. We have a room block that is ridiculous on the pricing, and it's at Mandalay Bay, and you can link to that from G4Live.com.
That's what's up, man.
Fantastic.
This guy's dialed in,
Yeah,
guys.
really.
He's dialed in.
Make
You
a
got
move.
it all
You can't
together,
stop
and you go see him continuing to do some amazing things, man, in this world. So we appreciate you, man. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you.
You'll be able to check us out at thevegascircle.com and you know, subscribe with us. We're on iHeart, we're on Apple, and literally appreciate your time, man. It's been
Guys,
good stuff, Keith.
Right back. I'm very grateful for these opportunities, and thank you so much for supporting our company and giving me the opportunity to talk about it with you.
No doubt.
And I look forward to much continued success together.
No doubt, man.
Appreciate it.
you,
Thank
bro.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
man.
guys.
Good stuff.